What is going on YouTube? This is Acid Root. So I'm going to review the EP by Twiztid. Basically, this project is called Toxic Terror, and it came out somewhere in 2008. Now, there's not a ton of information really about this project. This is kind of a very low-key one, but this is a secret project that Twiztid kind of put out in 2008 when they were on tour for their Independence Day album from 2007. This is kind of like a nice little treat. Twiztid kind of tends to do that at times. They'll have like these nice little treats. There's been stuff that happens like at the gathering of the Juggalos and that type of stuff. And this is definitely one that I noticed. Really like the gleaming kind of neon green kind of album cover was really kind of been a pretty awesome one to kind of get. So I wanted to see what this project was about and to see the sheer kind of nastiness that this project could convey and stuff. Now, I don't know if there was a single for this particular project, but it does have some gems on here. It has 7 songs on here, and out of those 7 songs, I wound up recommending to you 4. So I just would have to say, to really talk about this, I just kind of feel like it's interesting to kind of get some of these. Longtime collaborator ROC is on here a couple of times. Violent J is on here. Boondocks is on here. Blaze You Dead Homies on here, and Master P is on here. So there's some good features on here. Definitely, I would have to say, for the most part, I do feel like this is a pretty whelmingly good project. It's not perfectly kind of top shelf. I feel like it's pretty damn close. I mean, me liking 4 out of 6 songs on here. Toxic Terror, the title track, is just kind of an intro. So 4 out of 6, 2/3 of the project just being that wicked, I would have to say is pretty awesome to kind of get. And I definitely felt like, I mean, you just don't get better aesthetics for the most part in terms of certain, not too many aesthetics for the most part that's better than Twiztid with their usually kind of nasty, kind of autumn haunted kind of gleam as far as that kind of goes. This is another just stock hit for Twiztid. This is definitely one worth checking out as far as that kind of goes. Definitely some other ones to kind of get, pick this up with like the Green Book and some of those type ones and Freak Show and some of those type ones. Now, I don't know every single Twiztid project, and there's definitely way more I need to know about, but I would have to definitely say that this is a pretty gleaming one. Just an overall awesome one to kind of get. But the thing about it is it's kind of low key to the point where it's kind of got limited edition. Like apparently this was only at like the tour or something like that, but eventually there were more copies made later. The thing about this project though is it was kind of made in limited edition, so there's not overly abundant amounts of copies of this particular album. I think you can find it online looking for it, but I just would have to say it's just kind of one that's just kind of more of like a certain kind of here today, maybe not tomorrow kind of aspect is kind of about. There was another Twiztid project. Like I remember back in 2020, I did a YouTube video about how they had like some freak show kind of extra cuts that they were going to throw out for like a bonus package. And I think that did kind of happen, but I just think it was so limited as far as that kind of went. So there are some limited kind of ones that kind of happen here. It's definitely worth it if you find this project or see it at like a swap meet or like a garage sale, something like that, or just some place where you could definitely find some Twiztid, something like that. Just I would not hesitate to get this project because it's good. It's just kind of the concept about just being able to say, like, for as far as that kind of goes, there's just some great stuff on here. So to kind of talk about the songs I recommend, basically the 4 songs out of 6 I recommend would be the 4 songs I recommend would be While Out, If They Don't Come For Me, So Addictive, and the 7th track, which would be Feel Me. Now, the thing about Feel Me on the album, supposedly it just has a bunch of question marks, doesn't really unveil like the name of the song, but Feel Me has like Master P on this song, so it's kind of one that's kind of like a secret song, like the bonus song on here, but there's definitely some good stuff on here. I feel like one that I immediately kind of gravitated to was While Out, and this has the ROC on here. This is a song I gravitated to pretty quickly. It was While Out. This is a low-key kind of synthy party cut, I would say. It's a nice gleaming bop, and it's a pretty entry and good dap cut kind of moment song. I would definitely feel like this is one for like a nice kind of thumping house party, to something to get things going, kind of get the party started, the kickoff going, the bottles popping, that type of stuff as far as that kind of goes. This is a pretty good dance cut, and it's just an overall jivey and kind of social one to kind of have. This is definitely probably one of the more litty moments on here. Most of this album is kind of more horrorcore and kind of in a more kind of like sheer kind of horrific kind of tone, but this is definitely one that just felt a little bit more boppish and is just a good cut to kind of have. Definitely like songs like this. I felt like there was one that some of the cats from Twiztid, Jamie Madrox or Monoxide Child, were kind of on from the 2007 album by Blaze You Dead, which came out around this time also. So that's a good bop, kind of similar to that cut off of there, the single off that one. But some of these other ones, like If They Don't Come For Me is a good murky day commerce romp. I would say it's some good daytime autumn music, and I would say it's a pretty moody gem. This is definitely one that just kind of feels like jovial, this kind of day commerce as far as that kind of goes. This typical kind of autumn, September, October kind of fare, but just kind of smack dab 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Just not where it's like at the pitch of night and party music as far as that kind of goes. Just bottles popping all night, that type of stuff. Just more kind of just day commerce, just getting like some swishers at the gas station, some stuff like that, getting some beer beers, getting some Pepsi, stuff like that. Those kind of moments just to kind of have for like almost kind of like a real kind of sluggish, kind of leery, murky kind of malaise about it that just kind of works pretty well. This is just a good kind of day romp, I would just have to say. Good bop to kind of have just throughout the commerce of like midday as far as that kind of goes. Just some nice stuff. And so addictive is a sparkling grim word gem. I would definitely say it's got a nice lit. It's a nice litty spook of a song, and it's some good bustling jovial times. I would definitely say so. This is kind of one that's kind of similar to Wild Out, just more horrific and kind of more gothic. I would say just kind of in more of that kind of tone, just kind of more grim type music as far as that kind of goes. Definitely something more for like closer to Halloween and some of those more spooky type moments. This really kind of comes off as like a sparkling one that just has a lot of good sheer horror about it that just works extremely well. Definitely like that one. Feel Me. Feel Me is definitely a good highlight off this particular album. It has Master P on here. It's a thumping, kind of smoke ready, smog like gem. I would say it's some real fun, trippy malaise, and it's a good sluggish tone of a song. So this is definitely one that just really feels like you're smogged out of your mind, just smoking like crazy. Definite massive amounts of swishers, just having a good smoke session, that type of stuff as far as that kind of goes. Definitely get some snacks ready for that sort of stuff because all three of the vocalists on here kill their verses. Like all three of them, Twiztid, Master P. I mean, it says that the ROC is kind of on this song, but I think it says that ROC is on the song in addition to Twiztid and Master P, but I didn't really see that concept as much, but I would have to say this is a pretty good bop just to kind of have for some smoke readiness. It's definitely just a nice one to kind of have and just an overall highlighted moment that just is very smog-like and just kind of clouded, just kind of shroud type atmosphere, just being real kind of hazed out as far as that kind of goes. Just good stuck moments to kind of get stuck to. Just some good stuff. So talk about the two brief songs I didn't enjoy that much. Like I didn't really like the kind of like shrill kind of vibes of sex, drugs, money, and murder version 2. That one just didn't quite hit as heavily, which is too bad because it had Boondocks and Violent J on there, which are two rappers that I do fuck with pretty well. So that's some good stuff, but it just didn't quite add up quite as well. Just didn't quite hit as heavily. That one was kind of more shrill tone than probably the most of the tempo of this album. Then The Sickness was kind of just a poor one. I kind of didn't like the production at all in The Sickness. This was just kind of one that I kind of felt like it's especially disappointing that because normally Twiztid and Blaze Ya Dead Homie team-ups are pretty awesome and kick-ass to kind of get. I was kind of expecting another song like Wild Out, but this kind of productions on this song just particularly fell flat and were just not quite as addictive as they needed to be, which is really too bad because most of the concepts of this album hit the nail pretty heavily on the head. So just to have a couple of these blunders in like a small fashion was just kind of like just not necessarily like a huge disappointment, but just kind of a snag somewhat, just kind of to say just botch, like just a small kind of botch as far as that kind of goes. But it's just more about just like it's not quite as heavy hitting of productions more so than the actual song construction of it. It's just kind of the concept about it. But me basically liking, and then the Toxic Terror intro just didn't quite hit that heavily for me. But to talk about me basically liking 4 songs out of 6 on this album, I'm gonna go ahead and give this album, me liking 4 songs out of 6 on this EP, I'm gonna give this project like an 8.25 out of 10. It definitely had some quality on here. Definitely enjoyed the aesthetic and the overall quality of just like most of the promotion, the overall kind of atmosphere that this project kind of conveyed and stuff. But it just was kind of a couple botchments. Like the remix song just didn't hit. The remix song just didn't quite hit as heavily, and then The Sickness was just kind of a disappointing Blaze Ya Dead kind of team up, which was really too bad because they usually have some potent songs together. That's really about it. This is pretty much like pitch, kind of autumn music and Halloween type music. This stuff for fall smoke sessions, good leery kind of vibes, just good cooler weather, and just kind of more kind of outdoor, just in like hoodie season type stuff as far as that kind of goes. Just some good stuff for that kind of some good stuff for those kind of concepts. So I just would have to say good stuff. The social score I'm going to give like a 9 out of 10 because I really feel like there was some quality on here, and I think some folks may like the kind of offhanded production of The Sickness with Blaze Ya Dead. Didn't really fit as much for me, but most of these songs on here are pretty much just smoked out, kind of dazed and malaise kind of party vibes that just work extremely well. It's just a good haze trip just to kind of have in like some cooler weather as far as that kind of goes. The social score is definitely up to like a 9 out of 10. It's just kind of the concept that it is a little bit tricky. I mean, it's kind of limited edition type stuff as far as that kind of goes, but I just would have to say for the most part, it is pretty quality. So most of the songs on here hit pretty heavily. It's just got a really excellent aesthetic as far as that kind of goes. But in terms of the future, like the last time I checked in with Twiztid, they had an album called Unlikely Prescription, but I know they have some more projects out besides that. So we're going to have to get to some more of these, but this is definitely one worth getting, even despite the kind of more low-key and kind of limited type product that it kind of has as far as that kind of goes.